Hope everybody's having a great Friday night. Here we are on Winter Storm Eve, if we're going to see that tomorrow night into Sunday morning. All right, let's see. Let's go on over to the weather alerts map. And a lot of this you've been watching. You may have seen some of this. A few changes if you haven't seen anything since yesterday. And that is that the winter storm watch is still in place for our northern counties, but it has been replaced in North Georgia by this ice storm warning, which is mainly I-20 northward. But notice in our area, Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, Jones, Baldwin, and Washington counties are in it. Now, that doesn't mean that this is as far south as the frozen stuff is going to come. It could still come underneath this, but this is what the National Weather Service is betting on, that this is where the main ice storm is. This is kind of a buffer zone of maybe there could be a little bit of frozen stuff here. Now, if this is right, the bulk of our area won't see anything other than a cold rain, and that's actually a very good thing. This is not like last Sunday with the snow. We don't really want this event here. There's a look at the kind of adjusted look at risk categories for higher severity of impact here. So we're looking at northeast Georgia, obviously for the bigger ice. Where the wedge is in place here, the wedge of colder air. A little bit less of a chance, Atlanta, but they're still going to get some, and then even smaller chance as you get down into our area. It kind of cuts off right at the Macon area. All right, some models to look at here, but we're going to start with the graph model. This is the one that you normally see day to day. We show it all the time on all of our shows. This is our main in-house model here. So this takes us through the overnight into tomorrow, 40s, there could be some 50s tomorrow. There's tomorrow afternoon. Now, as we go forward on this one, it does show us getting down to freezing at some point later tomorrow night. Yesterday, it was showing like in the 9 o'clock hour. Now it's like 1 or 2 tomorrow night, heading towards Sunday morning. All of the other models, I'll say all, the vast majority of them basically have that freezing line cutting off right here. And that's the reason why that winter storm watch just includes our northern counties. But the graph continues to call for colder than that farther south. So as long as there's still a model calling for that, we need to pay attention to it, just in case that's how this actually ends up playing out. Let's go forward through the overnight into Sunday morning, still below freezing. Still there as we go 7, 8 in the morning. And again, if this is true, then any precip that falls and hits the surface would freeze on contact as we go into early Sunday morning. There's a look at around noon on Sunday. Now, again, some of the other models are running warmer. Let's see here. Where is my sheet? Some of the, this is Sunday noon. All right, so we're covered Saturday night into Sunday morning, at least on this model, where there's the chance, at least says the graph, that we could have an icy mix as far south as Macon, or even farther, you'll see in a minute, but everything else is staying north. All right, so I'm looking at overnight lows. Let me go back to here. You're seeing freezing there on the graph. I'm looking at GFS, 37 for Macon Sunday morning, 38 Euro. Some of the blend models, 34 to 36. So all of them are pretty much saying a cold rain that's very marginal, but most of it should be to our north. But again, this graph continues to show freezing. Now as we get into the day Sunday, Sunday is a wild ride with temperatures. There's just no way to give you a number because there's going to be such a wide range. So to exacerbate the problem here of trying to figure out what's happening, now we're getting into another situation where a warm front is coming up from the south. And where that line stops, as far as, how far north does this warm front go, we don't know that yet. It could be actually farther up this way. So the temperature is going to vary depending on where that warm front is, but there will be a sharp divide from what is cold to what is, you got to be kidding me, warm. Where we could have 30s and 40s up here, 60s and 70s in our southern counties, and you can see it right here. Let me take it where that warm front. I mean, that's wild. 30-something to 40, possibly low 70s down here, all in central Georgia right here. And because of this collision of air masses, a line of thunderstorms right here that could have some strong wind as it's coming across, and then this will clear out. Now this part right here is very important. There's actually 3 phases of this whole thing. First, Saturday night into Sunday morning, do we see any sleet or freezing rain? That's the first thing, the first hurdle. After that, a warm up to the south, thunderstorms that could be a little bit strong, not a high risk of severe weather, but maybe some gusty winds. This, though, is very important because I've had a lot of the questions are, okay, Saturday night, Sunday morning, that's fine. Don't have to be on the road, whatever. But Monday morning, I have work, kids have school, and I heard that we're going to go to freezing Monday morning. And whether we see sleet or freezing rain doesn't matter. If it rains Sunday and then we go to freezing, Sunday night into Monday morning, is it going to freeze things over? Well, it looks as though we're going to go to freezing Monday morning, but only for a little bit. So pay attention to where this time is. Normally on a night that we would be going to the 20s, we would already be getting close to freezing by this point at night. But because we had that warm front come up through the day Sunday, all of this has to get chilled out from the northwest. So we have to knock this number down. According to this model, at 3 in the morning, we're still not there. We're not close yet. So it's kind of iffy on the Monday morning thing. Because to truly freeze things over and cause a traffic problem come Monday morning, you would need to be at freezing all night long. We may hit freezing, but it's going to be when the low is usually the lowest, and that is going to be at sunrise, the last little bit of darkness that we have. And you can see that, let me go back to right there. If this model is right, around 6 in the morning we hit freezing. Well, we're not going to sit there very long. There's 7, 9, 10, by 10 o'clock, so only 3 or 4 hours we'd be at freezing, and then we're starting to climb back up as we go into the day on Monday. So phase 1, do we see sleet, freezing rain tomorrow night into Sunday morning? Phase 2, we have the thunderstorms coming through during the afternoon on Sunday. Not a big severe threat, but could have some gusty winds with that as that's coming across. Yes, freezing Monday morning, but maybe only for a few hours. Is that enough to cause a problem on the road? I don't know. I do know that if we didn't have this warm front and we were going to start chilling out at 10, 11 o'clock midnight, we're already below freezing and we stayed there all night, then yes, that would be a problem come Monday morning. But only being there from like 6 to 10, what does that do? Also, what did this model show? It has 30. Now, GFS has 30. Euro has 29. Some of the blend models, 26 to 29. So part of my equation may be different. And this is just this model. Some of the other ones, if they're going to 26, 27 degrees, it may start to freeze earlier. We just don't know that yet. And I'm not going to say, well, this is exactly what's going to happen, especially not on the 3rd phase of a wild weekend with all kinds of different weather changing back and forth. So here's a look at the same graph model now that we've seen the numbers. This is the precip part of it that goes along with that. Again, tomorrow going to be a breezy day. The winds will be coming in out of the northeast, kind of a interesting thing. If you're standing outside and you're looking off toward the northeast, the wind will be in your face, a cold wind. But yet the clouds and precip will be running west to east above you. This is overrunning. Cold air at the surface, warm muggy air coming over the top, falls as rain, and it's wherever that freezing line is. When it hits the ground, does it stay rain or does it freeze and turns into this pink color right here? So this is 11 o'clock Saturday night. And again, notice the graph wants to take that lower. A lot of the other models say, no, that freezing line stops about right here. Well, clearly if the graph has the pink shaded area here, it thinks that that freezing line is going to go lower than that. Six to 7 in the morning, 7 to 8. Most of it's gone at this point. And then you can see the warm front coming up right here. Here comes rain, thunderstorms, warm front. You see the wind coming up from the south. So again, some of these may have a little bit of a punch with some wind coming across here going from west to east. It's definitely a roller coaster ride of a weekend, that's for sure. There's 4 to 5 Sunday afternoon. Again, not a huge severe threat, but there's probably going to be some gusty winds with this as it comes across. And then clearing Sunday night. So there we are again. The rain is ending, but everything's wet because we've had all the rain. It's then about the temperature. When do we hit freezing? Is it toward morning and only for a few hours? No big whoop, or does it start to freeze earlier? Just to take a look at that storm outlook for Sunday, it's mainly making southward underneath that warm front, which makes sense. Cold sector here, warm underneath that warm front. So this is where the storms could have a little bit of a punch. Here is the North American model, the NAM. It shows not the same scenario, but it is one that also leans in on bringing that freezing line down farther south. It's 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, it's very sporadic. It's really not showing much of anything here, but it gives you the idea that it thinks it's colder south, and then that retreats. Here comes the line of showers and storms as we go through the afternoon into Sunday night, and then it clears. High-res model, and as I'm going to these models, we're starting to see less likely potential for central Georgia to see this. So you can see on this, keeps it mainly Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, maybe as far south as Monroe, Jones, Baldwin, and northern Washington County. There's 7 in the morning. This still lines up with the winter storm watch here. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, pulling away. Here come the thunderstorms in the afternoon and then pushing through. The GFS model, again, the one earlier this week that started just screaming from the mountaintop that it's going to be sleeting and freezing rain for 3 straight days, has finally come to its senses and decided that we might get missed totally, other than the top parts of these northern counties. The rest of it here in northeast Georgia, Atlanta to Athens and into the Carolinas. Sunday afternoon, everything leaves. Here comes the rain and the thunderstorms, and then it's through. Let's go to the Euro. Similar scenario where everything stays up here, mainly north of I-20. It comes down to maybe Jasper, Putnam, Hancock. So you can see there's a consensus among a handful of these models that's where that's going to be. And then there's the line of thunderstorms through Sunday afternoon to Sunday night, and then clearing. As far as ice totals, again, the graph thinks we're going to see something. It puts 1/10 of an inch to maybe 1/4 in our northern counties, if that even happens. Euro barely grazing our northern counties. GFS, same kind of thing. The NAM, for all the color it was showing, really only grazes the northern part too. So this is all good news. So if it was a snow event, you'd probably be wanting the graph to be right. It's an ice event, so kind of hoping the graph corrects later tonight or tomorrow and keeps this stuff to the north. Here's some potential ice totals. Again, kind of worst case scenario. If it did come down this far, 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch, and then mainly rain here. If most of the models are right, it's mainly rain even up here. If the graph's right, the pink shaded area is all the way down here. You can see North Georgia, 1/2 inch plus, northeast Georgia. That's not good. So those places are going to have some trouble with power outages up there, I do believe. Here's kind of a breakdown of how things work in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Last Sunday we had snow. How that works is pretty easy. Upper levels of the atmosphere, from the moment it leaves the cloud all the way to the ground, the whole column is freezing. Starts as snow, ends as snow. What we had last week that was a little bit different. You saw at the surface that it was 34, 35 degrees. So people are like, well, how can it snow when it's not 32? Well, because it's snowing all the way down, and then right at the surface, it was just a little bit above. But these flakes, as they come down, they drag the air down with it. So they drag the cold air down and can sometimes create a freezing surface. And we saw that for a little bit. Numbers that were 35, 36 quickly became 32 at the surface and supported it to stick for just a little bit. And then we got in the daytime and it was gone. Sleet. Going to come down, and this is the upper levels of the atmosphere, all right? So this is the warm part up here. Starts off as rain, comes down, starts to kind of mix in a little bit of rain, a little bit of frozen stuff, but never has enough time to really get its act together to become snow. Freezing rain, well, rain, warm at the top, warm at the surface. Never has a chance to do anything other than be rain. This is our scenario, which is a little bit of a flip-flop from last weekend. Last weekend, we didn't necessarily have freezing temperatures at the surface, but we created snow and brought it all the way down. This time, warm at the upper levels of the atmosphere. Remember, I was talking about that northeast breeze tomorrow at the surface. Cold air down here, overrunning of warm, muggy air up top coming from the Gulf. So this is all rain, 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 rain. Right at the very end, it hits the ground and freezes. So it's all about where does that freezing line set up? And that's the difference in what we could or couldn't see tomorrow night into Sunday morning. How about the wind? Well, I mentioned it's going to be breezy tomorrow, 25 miles per hour out of the northeast, I should say. And then you can see as we get into Sunday, there's that warm front right there, powering in 30 mile per hour winds to our southern counties from the south. The front starts to come through, and now shifting direction again. So if you have a flag in your yard, that thing is going to be a whirly-dirly as we go through this weekend, changing directions from northeast, then the wind from the south, and then northwest over the course of 3 days. Sure, wind chill map, let's see, not really relevant there. Oh, let's see, right there's. So it may feel like 23, 24 degrees as we go through the overnight into Sunday morning. And then you can see it definitely feels like freezing as we go into Monday morning. The question is, how long are we actually sitting there? All right, looking at questions here. Let's talk about the storm next weekend. I don't know if I have the strength. Yes, there is talk on the models of next Friday night into Saturday, another winter system for us to try to figure out. But let's get through this one first. If that happens, that would be 3 straight weekends. Yikes. All right. Let's see. Nate says we're expecting severe thunderstorms according to the models. We're in a low threat. On the scale of 1 to 5, it's a 1, so it's the lowest. I think it would be gusty winds with this as it comes across if we see anything. So I don't anticipate a big severe weather kind of thing, but I think it'll probably, let everybody know what's coming through. Diana, is Macon getting ice? Again, that's the question. And I wish I could tell you a definitive answer. Most of the models say no. But because a couple actually, mainly the main one is the graph, the one that we always show. Very dependable model. Usually the next question is, well, which one do you trust the most? I've just seen them do well in different moments over all the years. Hurricane Helene last year, the graph was a rock star. Every model had the track of Helene. Why am I sitting on the wind chill map here? Of Helene coming through to the west, and I'm going to not do this justice here. I'm just using this map. It doesn't mean anything right here. If I remember right, I think the Helene track was supposed to be like this. And most of the models were showing that, the Hurricane Center track and all that. And we kept watching the graph, and I was like, this thing is still wanting to go up through here. And it ended up being right. And if you all down here, all that damage on the dirty side of the storm in all these counties. So, you don't ever know. That's the thing. I'm hesitant to just discount this thing because it's one of the only ones showing it. I've seen it be right when many others are wrong. So if that is right, then we do have a little bit of a situation with some ice problems. But again, it's basically the only one. Other models are running anywhere between 34 and 38 degrees for Macon at least overnight. Now, if you're in Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, northern Monroe, Jones, Baldwin, northern Washington, places like that, I mean, it's a game of inches, literally, where that freezing line sets up. So different story there. But I'm talking about for the rest, underneath this line, is that where it stops? Or is that freezing line as far south as here? There's a lot of people affected or not affected, depending on where that drops down. Okay. So it feels like temp is 15 to 20 degrees, then it isn't going to freeze. It feels like it's just a sensible temperature to your skin. It's a formula that says if you're standing out in such and such degrees and the wind is blowing such and such speed, this is what it feels like. The sensible feel to a human. If it's 32 and you have a 20-something, 30 mile an hour wind, it can feel like 20. So it's just kind of, it's not a actual science as far as like a number, as far as anything freezing. It's just, again, what it feels like to you. And you can tell the difference. You walk outside at 32 degrees with no wind, it's not as bad as 32 degrees with 25 mile per hour breezes blowing at you. So yeah, that wouldn't affect anything as far as changing precip over. Could a tenth of an inch of ice cause power lines to come down? Where is that graphic I had? Okay, here's this. Quarter of an inch or less, which obviously would include a tenth of an inch. You just don't want them to be on the roads. A little bit of ice on the trees. If we were a quarter inch or less, tenth of an inch, it's not that big of a deal. We can get along with that. Once you get to a quarter to a half, it starts to get a little bit tricky, especially to older trees, susceptible to going down anyway, and then you put all that weight on them. And I know a quarter of an inch, a half inch doesn't sound like much when you think of it in the world of rain or snow, and it's not. But in ice, there's just so much weight. I mean, you're talking just hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds on a tree if you start getting above a half an inch. And you go above half inch, then that's when, and Northeast Georgia is calling for some of those totals. That's those kind of pictures you see where the trees and the power lines are just like bowed down, touching the ground. It's just so much weight, they can't hold it. So that's the latest. The 10 o'clock show will be coming up in a little bit on 13 WMAZ Plus. It's also on our CW channel. And then, of course, the 11 o'clock show on the main 13 channel. And there will be new model data coming out. So you want to check that. And then starting tomorrow, air mattresses will be inflated here at the MAZ Ranch. And we will be going on the hour, every hour, all day tomorrow. You want to get that 13 WMAZ Plus channel if you don't have it. I know some people are watching on Facebook or even YouTube. That Plus channel is invaluable to have that because that's where we'll be doing all of our updates. Every hour, all day tomorrow, all night tomorrow night, all morning Sunday morning, during the day Sunday, Sunday night, the same thing. Air, mattresses, and coffee. That's what it's all about. And as far as next week's storm system on Friday into Saturday, that winter event, I'm not even going to think about it till we get through this one. But yeah, the long-range models are trying to cough up a round 3. So anyway, let's get through this one. And hopefully the graph model is not right this time. And all of this stays to our north. We just have a cold rain, a couple of thunderstorms Sunday. Gets down freezing Monday, but only a couple hours. Doesn't cause a problem. You know, late start, worst case scenario for work or school Monday morning, and get back to business. So hopefully that's the way this is going to go, but we'll see. All right, folks, we'll be talking to you soon.